DRS, or drag reduction system, is one of the most discussed topics in any Formula One broadcast. But what does it mean, and how does it work? Let's take a look. The drag reduction system is a continuous driver-controlled device designed to aid overtaking and increase the likelihood of wheel-to-wheel racing in the sport. The system, which involves the driver opening a flap in their rear wing to reduce drag and gain top speed when running within a second of the car ahead, was introduced in 2011 and is still used today. However, DRS remains a source of contention among F1 competitors and fans, just as it did when it was first implemented over a decade ago. So, how does DRS help the drivers overtake? Simply put, it enables drivers to increase straight-line speed by dumping rear-wing drag through a slot that opens when a car is within 1 second of the car in front. Drivers can use this system during practice and qualifying laps as well, even when running alone on the track. The device is frequently chastised because drivers can artificially gain time on rivals ahead by pressing a button to gain a speed boost. As a result, it is frequently claimed that it diminishes the ability to execute a difficult overtaking maneuver. Juan Pablo Montoya, the former F1 driver and double Indianapolis 500 winner, known for his bolshy passes before DRS, even compared the device to giving Picasso Photoshop. DRS is not just an overtake button that automatically means passing the car in front. While its power has been deemed excessive on numerous occasions, and passes have occurred well before braking zones on straights, the tool is generally aimed at assisting overtaking when drivers would otherwise be stuck in dirty, turbulent air, which has become a major problem. Because the latest generation of F1 cars are designed to allow drivers to follow more closely with less dirty air, many people have hoped that DRS would be phased out. While that is an aim at F1 sporting bosses in the coming years, the device's continuing usage remains disputed. Since the late 1960s, when wing-produced aerodynamics became an integral part of F1 car performance, this has had a direct impact on how closely the cars can follow each other. Because engine parity in the pre-2014 era meant that teams could rarely rely on a significant grunt advantage to start ahead of or overtake a rival car, the smaller performance gaps emphasizes the dirty air effect in racing. This is the phenomenon of air pushed around by one car, landing on the front end of a car following behind, resulting in unpredictable handling and increased tire wear due to increased car sliding. The dirty air problem was so severe around the turn of the millennium that teams would frequently pit a chasing car to try to jump ahead when their leading rival stopped, significantly reducing on-track passing. As a result, fans and observers criticized the racing as being inferior. DRS continued to be used in the turbo hybrid era, which dramatically altered F1's competitive order up to the end of 2021. From 2022, F1 has returned to ground effect rules to reduce the dirty air effect and increase wheel-to-wheel passing. While this is widely acknowledged to have worked, the modified aerodynamics have reduced the slipstream effect. This, combined with the championship achieving greater engine performance parity ahead of a rule change in that area of the cars in 2026, means DRS remains a significant factor in overtaking maneuvers. So, how does the DRS system actually work? The DRS employs an actuator to control a flap in the middle of an F1 car's rear wing, which can be opened when drivers push a steering wheel button after entering a specific section of each track. These are referred to as DRS activation zones. The open flap reduces the surface area of a rear wing, reducing aerodynamic drag and rapidly increasing straight-line speed. This is permanent in races when a driver is within 1 second of a car ahead, even if this car is being lapped. DRS can be used at any time during practice and qualifying, but only within the designated activation zones. Until 2013, drivers could use DRS to reduce drag on a qualifying run at any point on the track. As a result, teams implemented setups that were ideal for qualifying, but hampered drivers attempting to race wheel-to-wheel. The critical 1 second gap between cars is measured at specific points before a DRS zone, referred to as a detection point. The distance between two cars is measured using electronic time loops embedded in the track surface. If the following vehicle is measured to be less than 1 second behind, a signal is sent to the car, allowing its DRS to be activated in the following zone. Drivers are typically informed that they can use DRS by dash lights activating on their steering wheels. For the car in front, teams generally radio their drivers to warn if a rival is within the vital gap. The attacking driver will activate DRS manually by pressing the steering wheel button, which can be located on the front or back of the steering wheel, depending on driver preference. If running with DRS active and the rear wing open, drivers will turn off DRS and shut the flap the next time they lift off the accelerator. When pressed a second time, the steering wheel button also closes the rear wing flap. If drivers are concerned about the aerodynamic load reattaching to the full rear wing and potentially causing corner entry instability, they can also close the wing before braking into a corner. Drivers are not required to activate DRS if they are within 1 second of another vehicle. Furthermore, pressing the button too soon means it will not open at the desired point, resulting in a delay before the wing can be opened. DRS is not permitted to be used during the first 2 laps of a race, or following standing or rolling restarts after a safety car or red flag period. The FIA race director officials can also disable DRS at their discretion if the conditions are deemed unsafe, such as rain. A car going off track or dropping debris at a specific point can also cause DRS to be temporarily deactivated in that zone. Defending drivers can only activate DRS if they too are within 1 second of a car in front. This is commonly seen in a phenomenon known as a DRS train. This effectively negates the DRS benefit, as it negates the impact of a top speed boost if many cars in a group are gaining, and gaps typically remain stable as a result. To accelerate faster onto a straight, it is also common for a defending driver to redeploy their electrical energy usage via the hybrid elements of modern F1 powertrains. This is typically called an overtake button, but for some teams, this is known as an SOC, or state of charge button. This is typically used to reduce the possibility of being overtaken by a car chasing behind with DRS activated by the end of an activation zone. The number of DRS zones varies by track and is also influenced by other venue characteristics. Every track's main straight typically includes a DRS zone. However, if a circuit has a particularly bad reputation for passing, additional zones can be created, including runs with shallow corners, long meandering zones through the final corners and onto the pit straight in Baku, or between turns 9 and 11 in Miami are examples of such runs. At the 2022 Australia Grand Prix, the reprofiled track was originally listed with 4 DRS zones. The idea was to use 2 of the zones, the run down the pit straight and the new curving section that replaced Melbourne's old chicane, to allow drivers to close in on rivals before attempting a pass using DRS through the other 2 zones in the corners that encourage overtaking with large braking zones. Following lobbying from certain teams, the DRS zones between turn 8 and 9 at the 2022 Albert Park layout was removed on safety grounds ahead of final practice. This meant that the most DRS zones used in an F1 qualifying or race session remained at 3. Although DRS can be used through corners with very shallow angles, and at some tracks, these curves may not even be designated as official turns by the FIA, running with a rear wing slot open through most corners is generally unsafe. Although reduced drag increases top speed, the resulting lack of downforce severely limits car control. And because DRS zones usually end at the end of long straights or acceleration zones, this can lead to major accidents. For certain specific corners, the FIA has allowed drivers to attempt to take them with DRS active. A well-known example was the 2018 British Grand Prix, which includes a 3rd zone running down the Silverstone pit straight and the extremely fast opening 2 corners. However, in both practice and the race, Romain Grosjean and Marcus Ericsson were involved in major accidents at the first corner, Abbey. The zone was removed for 2019 and has not been used since. If a driver's rear wings become stuck open due to a DRS failure, they will be shown the black flag with an orange disc. If this occurs, the driver must return to the pits to allow mechanics to manually close the flap and then not used again if it could not be repaired. A famous example of a DRS failure leading to a crash occurred at the 2018 Italian Grand Prix, where Ericsson crashed heavily at the Monza's first chicane as the DRS on his Sauber car did not close as expected when he braked at high speed. So, now that we've covered everything there is to know about the DRS system, you may be wondering if it's used in any other series. In fact, the system has been used in a number of racing series. Its most well-known application is in Formula 2 and Formula 3, both of which are stepping stones to Formula 1. When it was first introduced to FIA F3 in 2017, when the series was known as GP3, drivers can only activate and use the system for a maximum of 6 laps per feature race and 4 laps for sprint events. Since 2019, however, F3 has used DRS in accordance with F1 regulations. DRS has been used in F3 F2 since it was known as GP2 in 2015, and the series kept DRS when it introduced its new F2 2018 car for the 2018 season. Other series, such as the DTM, before it adopted GT3 rules in 2021, have previously used DRS in the same way as F1. Other motorsport series also use overtaking aids. However, these involve boosting engine performance for a set amount of time each race, as with IndyCar's push to pass and Super Formula's overtake system, or as with Formula E's attack mode, which allows drivers to temporarily run in a more powerful energy deployment setting, while the total amount of time can vary between races. What are your thoughts on the DRS system in general? Does it improve the spectacle, or does it make wheel-to-wheel racing a little boring? Let us know in the comment section down below.